Hi, everybody. It's Wednesday morning Central Time at 11 o'clock, and I'm Dr. John Sherk, and that means this is Brown Bag Lunch. And I come here every week to give you pieces of knowledge, tactical help, um, everything I can to enhance the lives of technicians and help owners of service companies create the environments that techs want to be in and stay in. Um, I've been working on a project now for a while that we'll soon be able to roll out our podcast, HVAC Joy Lab, that will focus on exclusively the question, what makes a great life for a technician? Um, there's a lot of people who have a stake in that, not the least of which are the employers of those technicians, but also family members and the technicians themselves. So what I'd like to do today is just put out another refined version of how to get there. What is the game plan for a technician to live an optimal life? Now, look, fundamentally, there has to be some desire on the part of, in this case, the technician, for you all, if you're a tech listening to this, to want to live an optimal life and to want to take action on, on doing it, right? In some Eastern cultures, there's a lot of emphasis on an association of happiness and good luck. And unfortunately, though, in cultures that have that association, when surveyed, the people in that culture are actually less happy than in other cultures who assume that happiness is something that I go after and I make happen as well as I can. Circumstances notwithstanding, but that I go after. So as I present these ideas to you all, mostly they're going to be in a position of consider doing this, right? And so with the end game being that you can create a kind of happiness portfolio or a happiness game plan as we go into 2023 pretty soon here, that you can put together the 2 or 3 things that you want to use to build your happiness portfolio. Okay. Now, let's just talk a bit about happiness here before I take one more step. In my last Brown Bag Lunch, maybe 2 ago, I said this, but I want to explain it more. That the starting point of that game plan is an understanding that happiness and unhappiness are not 2 ends of the same spectrum. Now, there's a lot there to unpack, but here's a little history to explain what I'm talking about. So way back in the days of Sigmund Freud in the 1800s, people who now are considered psychologists were professors of philosophy. There was no such thing as psychology, right? But Freud and then Jung and some others created the field, and the field focused on dysfunctions, personality disorders, things that made people suffer, borderline personalities, narcissistic personalities, different kinds of neuroses. And so for over 100 years, the field of psychology really focused on things that made people unhappy, right? And then in the late 80s and into the 90s, some psychologists started stepping up and saying, yeah, but what about the things that make you happy? What about the other end of the spectrum? What if I don't have a borderline personality disorder, but I still want to maximize my life? And this became known in the field as positive psychology. And that I'm not crazy about that term, because positive psychology kind of gets rolled in with just discussions of having a good attitude. And there's a lot more to it than that. And what began to emerge, because a lot of this kind of research involves brain scans, what began to emerge is that someone dealing with unhappiness and someone dealing with happiness, that was happening in different parts of the brain, right? So, I mean, on paper, we could conceptually say happiness and unhappiness are 2 ends of the same spectrum, but that's not how we work biologically, right? When we're going after and expressing and experiencing happiness, one part of our brain is engaging in that. And when we are dealing with unhappiness, a different part of our brain is engaging in that. Therefore, as you put together a game plan for your own optimal life, your own thriving path, you need kind of 2 tracks. One is getting more of the things that will make you happy. And another is elimination of things that make you unhappy, or the acquisition of things that reduce unhappiness. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a minute. So it's 2 tracks, right? So what is in the first track? The things that make you happy, right? So as a model, there's different kind of models out there, but this is the one I want to propose to you that you work with. So if I want to have things that make me happy, what do I go get? What do I go after? What do I focus on? There's 5 things. 5 things. One of the things is just positive emotions generally. Now, this is kind of the thinnest of the 5, because you can get positive emotions by just, half a dozen beers. You won't be positively emoting the next day, but you can kind of trigger this in multiple ways. So it's really, are you creating things that create sustainable positive emotions? But it's kind of silly to talk about happiness and not talk about positive emotions, because that's how you experience it, right? So that's the first piece. But then the second piece, let's call it engagement. Engagement, what I'm talking about here is complete absorption in an activity. Now, if this is your work, if this is a hobby, but a researcher, Michael Csikszentmihalyi, 40 years ago now, did a lot of research around when are people just having an optimal human experience. And he created a concept called flow, in which, if you see someone, let's say a master piano player doing their thing, and it appears that they're in a kind of a timeless state where they're just completely focused on that one thing, that is an optimal human experience, right? Now, what does that partly mean? So it means happiness comes through high-level skills at something and exercising those skills. So if you're very good at, we're talking about technicians. So if you're very good at diagnosing mechanical problems in a piece of equipment, then part of your optimal human experience is getting a lot of that going and being able to really be engrossed in that. If what you're good at is like on a residential level, selling to a customer, it's just that feeling like you're in the zone, right? The problem is the first day you do it, you're not in the zone. So part of your game plan has to be developing a skill set that you can kind of step into on a regular basis. And then if you can even change the environment and express it in different places, all the better, right? But part of your plan has to be where can I be in the zone regularly? Third are positive relationships, feeling supported, cared about, valued by partners, friends, family, colleagues, bosses. The technicians are largely men, not to leave anybody out here, but they're largely men. That's just a fact. And adult men are not good at creating new friendships. It's just not culturally something that's common. So I would say something to consider if you're a technician and hearing this recording. Think through, how am I going to have great friends next year if you don't have them, right? Now, great friends doesn't necessarily mean other technicians at work, and it doesn't necessarily mean other members of your family. And it's up to you to determine, where this is. But what I can tell you is bunch of research shows happiness levels go way up for someone who has multiple positive relationships around them. Okay. Number 4 is meaning, having a sense of value and worth and serving something greater than yourself. Now, this could be something religious. It could just be something you care about. Honestly, I don't know how this is going to sound saying it out loud, but the primary thing I'm serving as greater than myself is you all. This is my purpose, is helping you all find optimal lives. And so I have completion of this issue for me by doing what I do with you all. So, but you have to kind of determine, where's that going to be. They're only real. It doesn't have to be religious. It doesn't have to be philosophical. It just has to be something that you're acting on, that you feel like is bigger than and more important than just you. Okay. And then 5th, you need to have a kind of accomplishment or achievement, having mastery. This kind of ties to engagement earlier, but it's a little different. This is where I would say for you as a technician, think through what this statement means. Starting in 2023, I'm going to go from having a job to having a career. Now, what does that mean? It means you're going to have certain goals. It means you're going to try to accomplish certain things. It means you're going to think differently about both the present and the future. You're going to think differently about your work. You'll step out of the autopilot that many technicians get into because it's Monday morning and it's easy to just plow through another week. Okay. Now, those are the 5 components to make you happy. But what are the things when we talk about reducing unhappiness? Remember, we talk about 2 parts of the brain. You'll notice a certain pattern here of things that if you have them, they reduce unhappiness, but they don't make you happy. Right? You understand what I'm saying? Because we're talking about 2 different parts of the brain. The things that reduce unhappiness are things like financial wellness, physical wellness, mental, emotional wellness. Let's call it intimacy wellness. We both know what I'm talking about. And status and respect wellness. You have the respect of your peers. Now, why does this list sound so familiar? It's because these are the things that get held up in American culture as the things that if you have these, they will make you happy. Unfortunately, research clearly shows that's not the case, but they do reduce your unhappiness. So, for example, with money, if you felt like a very particular skill you have is making money somehow, and that gives you a sense of accomplishment and achievement and so on, then that's a very small percentage of people. But if you feel like that's true for you, you're a hedge fund manager or something like that, then what I'm about to say doesn't apply to you. But for almost all technicians and the vast majority of everybody else, financially, where it's maximizing your life is in having enough of each of these. Having enough financial wellness, having enough physical fitness, having enough mental, emotional wellness, having enough intimacy wellness, and having enough status and respect. Not pinning the needle as more than anybody you know, right? You don't have to be the richest guy. You don't have to be 55-year-old chiseled workout machine. Again, the goal here is happiness, right? Goal here is optimizing. What we're doing in these 5 things is reducing unhappiness and aligning then with things that cause happiness, right? And then, excuse me, if we want to talk about things that cause unhappiness, it's all the opposite of the 5 I just read: poverty, illness, mental, emotional problems, intimacy dysfunction, lack of respect. It's interesting. In a recent study of what things cause unhappiness, the number 1 activity that triggered highest levels of unhappiness in the survey among hundreds and hundreds of people. Number 1, conversation with their boss. Who says company culture doesn't matter if you want to recruit and retain technicians? So this is what I want to. You're going to hear a lot more from me on HVAC Joy Lab. The new podcast is coming out soon, and you're going to see more. I'm going to put together some documents, templates that will help you put together your game plan. But my goal is to help as many of you as possible in 2023 to go in with a renewed mindset about creating an optimal life for yourself as a technician. How do I do it? What do I focus on? Right? And the happy things, positive emotions, absorption in an activity, positive relationships, serving something greater than yourself, and having mastery and competence and achieving goals. Mastery is an endeavor. Okay? That's it. You'll get more from me week after week here, but we're done for this week. This has been Brown Bag Lunch. I'm Dr. John Sherk, and we will see you again next week.